Welcome back everybody to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the recently released Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and see how it compares to the previous entry to the series from 2017, Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the series, both Mario & Rabbid titles are turn-based tactics action-adventure games that combine the worlds of Ubisoft's Rabbids and Nintendo's Super Mario in their own zany adventure. In it, players take control of a team of heroes, each with their own unique attacks and abilities, and battle it out against the villains to restore balance in the universe. But that's pretty much where the similarities end, because the sequel, Sparks of Hope, features a robust number of changes to evolve the formula further. So, while I will still cover some of the graphical changes that Ubisoft have made, as I do with every direct comparison, I want to spend more time today covering those extensive gameplay changes, as I feel those changes are what truly set these games apart. Also, I'd like to thank Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. Join Mario, Bowser, Peach, Luigi, and the Rabbid heroes in an all-new adventure with a cosmic scale, only on the Nintendo Switch. You can find a link to the store page listed below in the description. Alright, so let's kick this comparison off by first talking about the changes that have been made to the characters, starting with the game's core lineup. As I mentioned before, Mario & Rabbids is a crossover title that mixes classic Mario characters with Ubisoft's troublemaker Rabbid creatures to form one cohesive tactical unit. This often results in plenty of silly moments throughout each game, as core Mario characters interact with their Rabbid alter egos and contend with their destructive antics. In the original Kingdom Battle, players can unlock 8 characters to choose between, including Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi, and each of their Rabbid counterparts. Sparks of Hope sees a return of most of these characters, though instead of Yoshi and Rabbid Yoshi, there's now Rabbid Rosalina, Bowser, and an entirely new character called Edge, no doubt named after her edgy personality. Kingdom Battle also features 2 other characters as part of its Donkey Kong Adventure expansion DLC that do not return in the sequel, though Ubisoft has already hinted at a certain limbless hero that is set to make his long-awaited return in Spark of Hope's planned expansion post-launch. In addition to the lineup, each of the returning characters' signature attacks and abilities have also seen some major changes. Take Mario for example. In Kingdom Battle, Mario was given a single blaster, along with a secondary hammer to dole out massive damage in close range. Sparks of Hope, however, does away with Mario's hammer, and instead gives Mario a second blaster, which can be used to either target the same enemy twice, or target 2 separate enemies within the same turn. Luigi, on the other hand, who was always the team's sharpshooter before, has had his long-range vacuum attack replaced with an even longer-range bow and arrow, which can deal out additional damage the further he's placed from a target. Peach is somewhat similar to her previous design, in that her boom shot is best used in close range against groups of enemies, though the weapon design itself has been reimagined as part of her signature parasol, and her techniques seem to revolve more around evasion and defense this time. The fan favorite Rabbid Peach also makes her return, and is still more interested in taking selfies than anything else, though her standard blaster has been replaced with the powerful Triple Troll that can fire missiles upwards and hit enemies behind cover. Rabbid Luigi, on the other hand, has had his old yo-yo replaced with a frisbee that can hit even more enemies with a single throw. And finally, Rabbid Mario now takes on the role that the original Mario had in Kingdom Battle, and is more melee-centric, with powerful fists that can beat down enemies and counterpunch anyone that attacks him. This set of new and improved heroes is also accompanied by the likes of Edge, who can fight multiple enemies with close-range sword attacks, Rabbid Rosalina, whose rapid-fire blaster can easily destroy cover and anyone behind it, and Bowser, who appropriately wields a powerful rocket launcher for heavy attacks. As for the enemies that players will face, this too has been changed a good amount. In the original Kingdom Battle, players faced a variety of enemies, each capable of different maneuvers and attacks to diversify late-stage boards. Ziggies and Hoppers were among the most common enemies, running from cover to cover and jumping off of each other to try and flank the player. These were often reinforced by the Smasher and Buckler, who would require players to carefully time their actions to expose weaknesses and avoid getting crushed. And then there were others like the healing supporters, the long-range teleporting peekaboos, and the heavy Valkyries. Interestingly, none of these enemies return in the sequel. At least, not exactly. Sparks of Hope introduces a brand new set of enemies, including a few recognizable faces from the Mario universe. But then there's these sniper-like scopers that can't teleport like the peekaboos, and regularly make use of defensive stances to protect strategic hardpoints. The squashers function a lot like the smashers from before, only they'll bounce off of players instead of smashing them with a large object, and they're not enraged during the player's turn like before. This functionality was instead given to the new Wild Claws, that behave more or less the same. Sparks of Hope also sees more of the well-designed mid and main bosses as well, requiring players to use every ability at their disposal to defeat them and progress further in the story. When it comes to the visual fidelity of all these characters, the differences are pretty negligible. These are already very stylized cartoon characters to begin with, and the only change that really stood out to me was the slightly more detailed clothing for each character, and a somewhat softer color tone than the extremely saturated appearance we had before. Next, let's look at the worlds that players will explore in each game. In Mario and Rabbids' Kingdom Battle, Mushroom Kingdom is invaded by a swarm of interdimensional Rabbids due to a malfunction involving a pair of special goggles and a time-traveling washing machine. This causes the two worlds to combine in bizarre ways, resulting in a familiar Mushroom Kingdom littered with massive, everyday household objects, and of course, plenty of rowdy Rabbids. This world is broken up into 4 stages, all connected via a central hub around Peach's castle. Stages include the Ancient Gardens, the Sherbet Desert, Spooky Trails, and the Lava Pit, along with the separate Tropical Island in the Donkey Kong DLC. In each of these locations, players must explore narrow, semi-linear paths, and will be regularly faced with puzzles, hidden secrets, and battle arenas. All the exploration is handled by a small circular robot called Beepo, that the rest of the party will follow automatically throughout the world. This means all the environmental interaction is handled by the robot, and so puzzles are often very limited to just pushing boxes or pressing buttons. Sparks of Hope, on the other hand, reimagines all of this. While the tutorial does begin in Mushroom Kingdom, the bulk of the game takes place on 4 planetary stages, each of which are far more open-ended than the previous game. Players will now directly control the party leader instead of Beepo, and will need to speak with other NPCs and solve slightly more complex puzzles now that the characters can both push and pull objects. Beepo is still present, but he's now used for more specific tasks like breaking open weak walls or creating bridges with large boulders, among other things. These hub areas also feature free camera movement as well, rather than the sort of isometric design utilized before, which gives players a much better sense of the surrounding landscape. As for the quality of these environments, I do believe that Kingdom Battle's locations were slightly more detailed than its successor, most notably grass and other vegetation, as the latest game appears to be going for a much more stylized aesthetic, only using things like 3D grass objects near the base of taller objects like trees. But the overall environmental density in general has been improved with the sequel, as areas like the snowy mountaintop are loaded with more complex level geometry and decor than any of the almost board game-like environments we saw in Kingdom Battle. To account for this much bigger, explorable space, Sparks of Hope adds in new checkpoint flags and ladders to the environment. These areas are also now populated with new optional quests that often challenge players with finding a secret stash or defeating groups of enemies, the latter of which now function as a classic RPG trigger to load a separate arena, as opposed to those large arenas being fully visible in the environment before. Which brings us to the next topic, the changes made to the battle system. The battle system has been given a massive overhaul. In the first game, everything within one of these combat scenarios is handled using a strict grid and action point system. Players can move a set number of blocks, attack using their equipped weapons, and/or use one of their techniques to buff their team. These actions can be performed in any order that the player wants, and can swap between active heroes to time actions and maximize their attack and defense. Sparks of Hope, however, drops the grid system entirely. Players can now freely move each of the active heroes within their respective movement zone, and can even relocate characters back and forth as they see fit. This adds a totally new dimension to combat, as players can reposition characters for team jumps, regroup to apply buffs, and confirm their positions with less chance of making an unintended error. The catch is that using a character's attack will now lock the character into place for that turn, ensuring players can't run up, shoot, and then hide. With the grid system gone, Sparks of Hope also changes how maneuvers like the team jump function, and now requires players to navigate a hovering character in the air before a timer expires and drops them below. Another big change is the addition of the Spark power-ups. Sparks are little stars that can be assigned to each hero and offer a special buff that can be triggered after a short cooldown. These abilities are mostly carried over from the previous game, like being able to boost attack power, add fire damage, or fortify. But these are no longer tied to a single character and can be reassigned in the hero management menu. And they can even be upgraded using a new form of earned currency called Star Bits. Alongside these weapons and power-ups are a new set of usable items that can either be found in the exploration phase, earned by completing quests, or purchased using found coins at a local sales bot vendor. Items include healing mushrooms to restore health mid-battle, a POW box to send out a powerful shockwave, boots to add an extra movement phase to your turn, and a cooldown clock to instantly reset a cooldown for sparks and techniques. And then of course we have the progression system. In Kingdom Battle, player progression is achieved primarily by earning coins and spending those coins on new weapons earned throughout the game. Weapon types are limited to each character, ensuring that they maintain their signature style of fighting. But each of these new purchased weapons can increase the weapon's base damage, or add special enhancements like a sticky honey ammunition, or a chance to push enemies back a long distance. Sparks of Hope drops the weapon purchase system, replacing it with the ability to purchase a weapon skin instead. This limits the player's ability to customize each character's attack style a bit, though it does seem to be done to encourage more liberal use of the new Spark power-ups, as these could be used to infuse special elemental modifiers like Incendiary, Splash, or Ice rounds. Players will also still rank up and earn skill points, which can then be spent on a skill tree just like before. But this system has been slightly simplified, as upgrade point costs are usually between 1 to 3 points, rather than 10 to 30, and the skills themselves feel slightly more rewarding early on. Overall, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope offers a wildly different experience from the previous Battle Kingdom. While they're both turn-based tactical games on the surface, the entire concept feels much more refined in this latest entry, giving players more direct control over the action, and polishing up the character balance to make the experience feel more cohesive. I do think there's some aspects of Kingdom Battle that still work great, like the board game style level environments, and the almost more whimsical and fun nature of the original story. Though there's no denying the significant increase to the scale of the experience in Sparks of Hope, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what's in store with the game's upcoming Rayman DLC. But what do you guys think? Are you happy with the changes that have been made for Sparks of Hope, or do you prefer the design of the original game? Let me know in the comments section. Also, I'd like to thank Ubisoft once again for sponsoring this video. If you like what you saw today and want to give this game a try, you can meet up with Mario, Bowser, Peach, Luigi, and the Rabbid heroes in their all-new Cosmic Scale adventure on the Nintendo Switch. You can find a link to the store page in the description below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this posted every week.